today we're going to talk about social eating and the barriers that social eating can cause towards our weight management. There are lots of different social eating occasions, so it might be a birthday party, you might be going out for a meal, you could be going to a friend's house, it could be ordering, a Chinese at home, it could be that Friday night chippy that we sometimes have. There's lots of different things that count as social eating. So one of the barriers that we face when we are social eating or eating out is that we don't actually know what's in our food. So you might go to somewhere like McDonald's or a restaurant like Pizza Hut or somewhere like that, and we don't actually know what the content of our food is. So for example, a McDonald's Big Mac has got 508 calories in it, 27 grams of total fat, 9.5 grams of saturated fat, 9 grams of sugar, and then 2.3 grams of salt. And you probably wouldn't have thought about that because there's no packaging there for you to look at. You can't actually check before you eat it. So that's a big barrier for us, isn't it? We don't know what's in it, and we could have probably made that a little bit more healthier at home. So something else that we might want to think about is when we're out and about and we're buying drinks. So for example, getting something like a hot chocolate from Starbucks. So a Starbucks Grande Signature Hot Chocolate has got 537 calories in it, and that's just a drink, and we probably wouldn't always recognise that as having so much calorific value. So in that there's 30.7 grams of total fat, there's 18.8 grams of saturated fat, 0.37 grams of salt, and then 47.4 grams of sugar, and that's a massive amount, and we don't necessarily factor that social drink into our daily intake, so we might not have recorded it in our monitoring diary or something like that, so that's something else to be aware of. So thankfully more restaurants are now putting their calorific values on their menu, and if it's not on the menu then we can also go to the website prior to going there to make a more informed choice about what we might have. So there's a few kind of hints and tips that we might want to think about when we think about going out to a restaurant. So one of them might be to share your starters if you are going to have one, because that's not something you would probably usually have at home, so sharing it will reduce the amount of extra energy you're taking in. Avoid snacking on things like olives and breads before you actually get your meal, because again that's just something extra that you're having, and you'll probably eat that quite mindlessly whilst you're chatting to your friends. Try and avoid adding additional salt to your meals, or if you order something like pasta, having extra cheese on there. Try and bulk up your meals with things like a side of veg rather than other like carbohydrate sides, so extra fries or garlic bread or something like that. And then finally, ask for sauces to be on the side rather than all over your food. If you've got it in a pot on the side, you can then decide how much you're going to have. You've got a bit more choice around your portion control. So now we're going to talk about that Friday night fish and chips. So there are a few ways that we can make that option a little bit healthier. So we could do things like having a portion of mushy peas on the side, and that's going to help us achieve the easy plate a little bit easier. Avoid other foods that are high in fat, so things like fried sausages and pies. And then another thing is the thicker the chips are, the better they are, so that there's less fat absorbed in that chip than if we had skinny chips that are all taking up that oil that they're fried in. And then the last thing that we could possibly do is either ask for a lightly battered fish, don't eat all the batter, or ask for your fish to be cooked in breadcrumbs rather than batter. Okay, so the next place that we might go to, or we're going to look at, is an Italian restaurant. So if we're choosing things like pizza, could we choose some healthier toppings, so maybe vegetables, ham, fish, something like that. Or alternatively, when we choose pizza, we can opt for a thin crust base as opposed to deep pan or stuffed crust. Then if we're having pasta or something in a sauce, try and choose tomato-based sauces and avoid creamy sauces. And then finally, avoid having the extra parmesan on top or whatever cheese it is that they do offer to you. So the next thing we're going to look at is maybe when we order a Chinese takeaway. So we can order boiled rice or steamed rice instead of fried rice, and that's going to be a little bit better for you. Try and avoid things like sweet and sour battered chicken or pork balls. That's a very sweet sauce, and obviously it's got batter around it, so it's fried as well. Try and avoid deep fried starters like prawn toast or spring rolls, and then maybe opt for a soup to start instead. That might be a little bit of a healthier option for you. Obviously, as well as all of these other things, be aware of your portion size. You don't have to eat all of it, just have what's going to satisfy you at that time. So another example of social eating is when we go on holiday. So very often when we go on holiday, you know, we've built up to this, we've saved up all year, we're going away, we're going to have a nice time, and we want to forget about our weight management. But what that does is it can often lead to a significant amount of weight gain, which then when you return home, when you're back to day-to-day life, can make you feel disheartened. So some advice we have there is to remember to keep your monitoring diary, still think about how many steps you're doing or how many active minutes you have, and then think about writing down everything that you do eat and drink. Something else that's really important when we're on holiday is to stay hydrated. We can very often go for fruit juices or ice lollies or an ice cream in place of, you know, a drink of water. We might just be thirsty, so it's good to make sure we are still keeping that water in. Think about your hunger fullness. So very often, if you go all inclusive, for example, we'll eat a lot more than we usually would at home, and it's just because it's there. We're not thinking about actually how hungry am I or how full am I after I've eaten. We just eat a bit more, or we have an extra snack because it's there and because we've paid for it. And then also something that's really important is to maintain that meal routine. At home you might have your breakfast, your snack, your lunch and then your evening meal, but then when you go on holiday you might get up a bit later, you might skip breakfast, and we know that not having a meal routine can lead to weight gain, so we need to try and keep that all the time we're away, and also that makes it easier for us to just jump back in when we get home. So social occasions such as a birthday, Christmas, Eid, holidays, Halloween, a christening, they're all marked by special foods. So for example, at your birthday you'll have a birthday cake, if you have a party you might have a buffet, at Christmas we have a turkey. There's lots of different things that we count on when we're celebrating those different social occasions, and it doesn't always necessarily have to be about just that food. It can be about the fact that you are socialising and you are seeing your friends and you are seeing your family. So maybe taking a small bit of focus away from those foods and shifting it towards, you know, spending the time with the people that matter to you might be helpful as well. Social occasions don't necessarily happen all the time. So if you've got one or two social occasions over the calendar year, going out and celebrating and having what you want probably isn't going to have too much of an effect on your weight management. But if you have, you know, something in the calendar every week that you're going to be going to, then we really do need to be mindful about what we're having and thinking about how we can manage those social occasions in our life. So things like recording your monitoring, you know, monitor your activity that you're doing, think about your meal routine, and think about recording everything that you have, the drinks that you have. That's all going to play into, you know, your weight management and ensuring that you reach the goals that you've set for yourself. So to conclude then, people that achieve weight loss tend to eat at home more frequently, but that doesn't mean that we're trying to ruin your fun and we don't want you to go out. We do want you to go and enjoy those social occasions, but we want you to be mindful and think about all the hints and tips that we've given you so far. If you've got any other questions, go and speak to your lifestyle coach, but you know, definitely still enjoy yourself, but maybe do a bit of forward planning and thinking before we do make those choices. I hope that's helpful, guys.